Good morning and welcome to Green Pass Gaming's Sunday coffee morning gaming chat live with myself, Flat Pucks, and Luke this morning. Got a few topics that we need to get into. Yeah, hi GPG Crew, how are we doing? Hi everyone watching.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, so I've got a few topics to get into today. Hopefully probably about an hour's long show, I guess. And I've posted 3 topics, but I'm sure there's probably a few others we might be able to dive into as well. But before we do, let's just do a very quick round of what we've been up to in the last 7 days or so. Pucks, what have you been playing? What have you been up to?
Yeah, gaming-wise, I've mostly been fully into Tunic, actually.
Oh.
And I've been finding most of the secrets, and I've beat the boss, and there's actually an alternate ending, like a true ending, so I managed to do that. And then they also have a new game plus as well. So
oh wow, it is proper Souls-like, isn't it?
it really is, yeah. And the last boss, it definitely took me a good couple of attempts, and but again, more with the notebook or the in-game manual, whatever you want to call it. Like that, the whole way you use that is phenomenal, and I don't want to give anything away, but I think if you've played it, it's probably alluded that there is some sort of puzzle to open what's called the door on the mountain.
Okay.
But the actual solution for that is by far probably the best puzzle I've ever solved in any game ever.
Wow.
Any game ever. That's how elaborate it is and very well thought out.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Excellent.
Apart from that, I've just jumped onto the new Kirby game actually, as of Friday evening.
Okay.
On the
that
Switch.
Doesn't surprise
so I've been playing a bit of that as well.
Yeah, excellent. Oh, fantastic. Oh, that's cool. I'm pleased you completed Tunic. That's probably next on my to-do list, to be honest.
I highly recommend it. It's very good.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Mr. Steele, Luke, how the devil are you, my friend? Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Being met to both of you, obviously. But yeah, what have you been up to this week?
Yeah, so gaming-wise, for obvious reasons, not a great deal. I've been playing. I've just finished, quote unquote, the Returnal DLC, which is called the Tower of Sisyphus, which is just awesome. So that is it's a free DLC, and it's an endless mode in a new area of the game. But in Returnal fashion, it has essentially a story that takes place in a different area. That you kind of unlock as you progress through the tower, so you can actually, quote unquote, finish the tower in terms of all the story stuff. But you can just keep running it for as long as you want. It just never ends. And it's just, it's fantastic. It's everyone knows how I feel about Returnal. So and this is just more Returnal with more story and in a kind of arcade environment, which is basically, Housemarque's jam. That's what they're amazing at. So it's fantastic. So I've been playing that, and then yesterday, after an absence, I finally picked Elden Ring back up. That was a forced absence. That wasn't because I wanted to put it down. So yeah, I've actually made quite a bit of progress yesterday. Just picking it up again. Got through a few more bosses. Got to another main boss. But I know you finished it, haven't you?
I have, yeah. After 100 hours, 100 hours incomplete. I'm about level 180 something, and
nice.
Yeah. It's been a roller coaster. I've both really enjoyed it and got as ridiculously frustrated as you can with a game as well. Because I think one thing I wasn't kind of expecting is sometimes that when you press a button, the animation takes so many frames to complete that.
Yeah,
the situation's changed in that time, so you're desperately trying to block or roll out the way, but of course you've got to finish the animation that you've started before it can do the next thing. And of course, at that time you've been one-shotted or whatever it is, and so that's taken a bit of getting used to. But I love the exploration side of it.
Is it a bittersweet feeling that you finished it?
Yes, but I think that's exactly how you're supposed to feel.
Okay.
I think that's how you're supposed to feel. To be honest, you're not supposed to get off there loving it. It's like, whoa, that was a thing. So,
it's really still very special. I'm nowhere near that far into it. I'm only about 25 hours, level 50 something.
Oh, okay.
But I've got past a few main story bosses. I'm on Star Scourge Radahn for anybody who knows.
Okay,
So,
Enjoy.
so he's interesting. Yes, yeah. Well, I actually almost beat him on my second attempt last night, and then he just did one attack that just one shot me. So that was brilliant. But it's still brilliant, and I'm just trying to get through that, and then I think I'll probably move on to Tunic after that. Actually, so.
Have you touched Tunic at all? Because it's remarkably Souls-like. It's ridiculous.
Yes. So I played 10 minutes before I went away to the UK, I mean I played the demo before, so that wasn't anything new. But I have heard that it's and the reception has shown that it's quite in depth actually. Yeah, quite different and stuff. So I'll be touching that and I'll probably pick up Kirby as well because I played the demo and really enjoyed that. So,
that's really cool. No, that's cool. Maseko, welcome at the chat, by the way. Maseko saying, my finger's still intact. Yes, still have 10 of the things at the moment. After pushing those buttons so hard. But no, exactly. Cool. Well, let's get straight into today's topics then, if we can. And was this a surprise? I think it was a little bit of a surprise. I don't think it's a massive. It hasn't sideswiped anyone. But Xbox have announced that they're opening up a new cloud publishing division within their Xbox Game Studios publishing arm. I think it all gets a bit complicated. And this is purely around cloud gaming. Now, I think there was some sort of confusion around whether that just meant kind of game streaming, because we kind of have that at the moment, but it doesn't seem to be like that. This is where the whole compute side of things purely lives in the cloud. Now, Luke, perhaps we'll come to you first on this one. I don't know if you're well versed with this particular topic, but I think it's more around to with games that can solely live in the cloud using the cloud servers and stuff. Have you got any more details on that? Are you aware of the kind of the difference of this particular studio than this publishing arm, other than sort of games being created on Xbox and then just being streamed via xCloud?
No, I think so. I think it's headed by Kim Swift, if I've got that right. And I think he formerly was at Valve some time ago and worked on Left 4 Dead and Portal and that sort of stuff. So I think he's actually been there. I'm sure he's actually been there a while in a cloud position, albeit I don't know if he's had this formalized role that's come to the fore in terms of a publishing arm, if you will. He was rumored to be working with Kojima, or trying to work with Kojima with Xbox. This is where the whole Xbox and Kojima rumors came from, to bring a native cloud game to that service. So it seems like, I think the point of the arm is, as you say, to make cloud native games for Xbox, and I think they're trying to make games that are only possible from the cloud rather than something running natively on Xbox on a console or a PC. So I think it's probably fairly early days, but it's cool because it will, I mean, I think I've always been interested to see, okay, well, what does that experience look like if you build something purely for the cloud? What extra can you do? What things can you do beyond having it run on your Series X? So I'd be interested to see what comes out of that. I don't know any more than that, really. But
yes, I mean, Kim's a female, I believe. Kim Swift.
No.
Worked on the Portal project and Valve. So, the only example that I'm aware of, and correct me if I'm wrong, if there are others, was Crackdown 3, where they said they were going to offload some of the destruction compute to the cloud, because obviously, from a physics point of view, perhaps, it could work out many more sort of subparticles and how destruction was going to work, taking down entire buildings and stuff. I don't think we've come across any other examples since then, really. And I know Microsoft have always kind of been pushing the power of the cloud and stuff. Well, they certainly were. I mean, that's obviously tailed off, but perhaps they're trying to reinvigorate it in some way. But I can only imagine games that are either highly AI dependent, or there is some sort of physical compute that would almost be impossible to do on something like a Series X. But that would seem like a massive. I mean, obviously the Series X is massively powerful, so for it to not be powerful enough to do certain AI tasks or physics tasks, it would be amazing to see kind of how that comes about, I guess. But we're firmly back into game streaming at this point, Luke, aren't we? I mean, by its very nature, it has to be streamed at this point. So we as a community kind of have to be on board with the game streaming side of things, I guess.
Yeah. I think these are games that when we say run in the cloud, probably take advantage of some of the stuff that you've just spoken about in the way that Crackdown did, but on a presumably a much higher level, but also that are just fully streamed. You don't have a native console or PC version for them, and they must need the cloud to work in some capacity. So I don't know what that looks like. Crackdown was a very early attempt at doing something kind of like that, where one part of the game was offloaded to the cloud. It was pretty rubbish, but I'm sure that whatever they're planning for these won't be like that. I suspect they've got a bit more ambition for them. So, if one of those games is a Kojima game, then then that sounds really cool to me.
Yes,
so,
that's true. That was rumored to be an online-only service, wasn't it? That's interesting. Good point. So, Pux, I mean, obviously, one of the downsides with something like Crackdown 3, and it was certainly the first thing I thought of, and probably one of the first things you thought of as well. It's all very well offloading a load of compute to the cloud, but what happens if you go offline? And obviously, I think the answer at the time was, well, you just get a much more generic level of compute, and the destruction is much less sophisticated, shall we say. But obviously, one of the ways you can fix that is to just entirely keep the game online anyway. So, does this excite you? Because, I don't think any of us stream games by choice, but if there was a streaming only version of a game that actually featured some of these kind of, like I say, advanced AI or destruction or whatever it is, would you be kind of interested in that?
It's a weird one, I think. I'm not necessarily excited about it, but I'm not necessarily underwhelmed by the concept either. But looking at some of the words I'm reading on the screen right now, talking about it, they've also, like this article in particular, it's obviously got snapshots of Sea of Thieves and Gears 5 playing on tablets and a phone with a controller. But I'm wondering, but then there are some games like Forza Horizon 4 and 5, when I tried those in the past with xCloud, just to kind of have a test, they seem to be so... I mean, I appreciate that at the time they were probably running on Series S blades or whatever, but I don't know. There seems to be so much going on that it doesn't seem to be able to push information to your device fast enough, if that makes sense. Whereas smaller games, where there's a lot less going on, you can stream that. That information is a lot less. Well, there's a lot less data there to send to you at any given frame. So there's some smaller titles which seem to work well, and others which seem to struggle even on even on the best connection you could have. I don't know. I mean, looking at this at the moment, it's saying that it's been considered like a second party publisher, like internally, and it's all just exclusive to Xbox and stuff as well. So I'm wondering if this is not only maybe an initiative to push, their cloud initiative to other parts of the world which may not be able to afford Series X's or things like that, as we talked about on previous shows in the past, or are they going to be trying to think of? I don't even know how to think about it. I know there's a few big YouTubers out there which have made like interactive shows, like via YouTube kind of thing, like multi-clip interactive adventures, like partnering with YouTube and things like that. So I'm thinking outside of just games, because you could argue that is a game in its own right, I guess, because it's interactive to some form. If maybe extends those kind of experiences where they're not just normal games, they are interactive experiences perhaps, or other kind of specific things, which, as Luke mentioned as well, they're saying that this is going to be exclusive to the Xbox ecosystem. So clearly this has to tie in with their own technology directly, So yeah, I don't know. I find it interesting. But quickly talk about the Crackdown 3 stuff. I'm aware that that whole offloading the AI portion of destruction was a massive thing. But I thought that they binned that all off before they shipped the game. I didn't think that was actually part of the game anymore. I thought that was a previous idea that was floated around for a long time, but then I thought they binned it off due to the lack of.
I don't think that actually ever made it to the final code, did it? No.
But things like that, I mean, it depends. I find it hard to think why you would need to offload that, because, in terms of how you put a game together, it's so refined in terms of, I mean, I know there's obviously, it's open to any and every person and what your project requires, but at the same time, like it's games like Battlefield, which have had destructive environments since like the early 2000s. I appreciate it's on a different scale that they were originally talking about. I mean, they were talking about whole in-game buildings collapsing and wiping out into dust. I appreciate that, but I don't know. I just don't necessarily think that it's something you need to offload, because of how other, it's been proven other companies have done it on larger scales as well. I just don't think that's something that you'd need to solely put to the AI. But if you're throwing a load of difficult to compute all at the same time stuff into one kind of big environment, then sure, you can offload it. But then talking about just being online and DRM, which is something else you mentioned to me, I think take GT7 for example. I mean, that's gotten a lot. I mean, I'm not knocking the game. I've not played it. I have no real right to. But from what I've read, a lot of people are knocking the fact that it's DRM always online because of the fact that you're relying on the servers, and even the single player experience you can't play because it has a DRM requirement. So I think as long as they approach it the right way, which isn't quite that way, then I think it should be fine. But on the other side of the coin, saying that this is solely a cloud gaming thing, then the requirement is already there that to experience this, you have to have the device online. So you're kind of already setting your own requirements and expectations of people that to get into this, you have to be connected to the service in some form. So no, I don't. It still seems to be quite far out in terms of when we're actually going to see something actually working with whatever this idea is. So I can't necessarily say excited about it, but I'm looking forward to the possibilities of what it could deliver.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're a long way from any big titles launching or being published by them. I'm guessing this is going to be more of a ramp up, probably some more smaller indie type titles. Sorry, I don't think we've got a huge AAA coming down this particular pipeline, have we? I don't believe. But Moseko's written, there's quite a good, interesting one actually about offloading some ray tracing and stuff. So if we could make games look slightly prettier, it's not just about AI and stuff like that. There are graphical things that can probably happen in the cloud that you can't necessarily do at home, and like I say, ray tracing. But it's an interesting one. That it's going to be interesting to see how it develops over time. I think we're quite a few years out from probably seeing the fruits of that particular labour, I guess. And in a couple of years' time, our attitudes might have changed, and some tech may have changed as well along the way. So I will see how that one pans out. Well, talking of GT7. Perhaps we'll come to you on this one, Luke. There's been a bit of a debacle around all of that. We've already mentioned it before, haven't we, about the high prices. I think Sony have mentioned this week that they're going to try and fix this issue, but it's made me wonder why it's come along in the first place. Do you think that the very high microtransaction prices were all part of trying to claw back the original development cost, do you think? Or do you just think it was a completely misguided move?
I think it was just really misguided. I can't think that GT7, even though it's obviously taken a while to develop, I can't think that it's a huge budget game in comparison to some of their other first party stuff. I just think they had some microtransaction stuff in sport. It was probably quite successful for them, so they wanted to do it again. But which is fine in of itself. There's nothing wrong with that. But obviously the way that they've gone about it, and then the prices, the required credits, etc. for this stuff has just been just ridiculous. Really weird. And you'd think that this stuff would have been cheaper. Because the game is full price. Obviously in sport, it's kind of a discounted price. There was I think a free version at one point as well, so you could get into it at a low barrier to entry, and then you had microtransactions, which I think is This one was full price game, and the microtransactions were more expensive than they were in Sport. So yeah, it was not a good look for them at all. Obviously, they're now doing some stuff about it, which is good. But it's just weird that it got into this position in the first place, because just not really any need for it. Again, I don't have a particular issue with microtransactions being in these type of games. They're in most racing games. But when they're this egregious, it was just a bit strange, really. So I'm hoping they fix it pretty quickly, because if anything, it just harms the reputation of the game, which by all accounts is very good. So they won't want that, and I don't think other people want it. And the bigger issue seemed to be in the last couple of weeks that it just went down for a day, didn't it? And you could only play in offline mode.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so I think it went down for about 24 hours. Remarkably, so people could only play in the offline mode, which is really limited in what you can do. So
I've read that apparently even in the offline mode you can't even, like, it's not a full single player experience. You only have very limited cars on one track or something.
Yeah, it's basically like what? the download mode on like FIFA. If you're downloading FIFA and you can play like a friendly, it's equivalent of that basically. So.
Did you see that it's actually being kind of review bombed on Metacritic, and the user score was down to about 1.6 or something?
Yeah, wow. I think it's the lowest user score of any.
Isn't it lower than Battlefield 2042, which is kind of a benchmark?
I think it is. Yeah, I think it is. So,
you don't want to be hitting that as a benchmark.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that's why Sony's kind of stepped in at this point. Like you say, because funny you mentioned Returnal earlier, and I was just having looking through the PlayStation Store on my PS5 yesterday. So it is now the time to pick up Returnal. When I looked, it's still £70. It's like, oh man, really? And that will probably bring us neatly onto the next topic. But with Project Spartacus literally just round the corner, I'm thinking, do I really want to be spending any money on any games, because some of them might end up in Project Spartacus, I guess, on some level. So let's move on to that if we can. There's been some comparisons between Project Spartacus and Game Pass, which I understand. I get why those comparisons have been made on some level, but I don't think it's necessarily fair. I don't think Project Spartacus will be like Game Pass, particularly in terms of obviously first-party titles arriving day and date. So I think if that's people's expectations, I think they're going to be sorely disappointed, if I'm honest, on some level. It's probably going to be slightly cheaper, I'm guessing, not necessarily, but there's a competitive market out there now that Microsoft have laid out for Sony to kind of step up to, I guess. But Pucks, it's mentioned that obviously we might have details, or even I don't know how imminent the actual launch is, but as early as next week. Is that kind of taking you by surprise?
A pleasant surprise, yeah, actually, because I think I may have not read some things properly, but PlayStation have not abandoned PS4 at all at this stage, which I find pleasantly surprising. But to the point where I think, are they going to potentially have benefits of what this service is also going to be almost back compat, so to speak, with PS4? Are you going to be able to go into the service and play all the best sellers, which maybe you've missed, which unfortunately for me, I've got and played most of them anyway. So I don't think in that kind of sense I don't have much use for me at that platform. But moving forward, I mean, I know, as you say, a lot of people are expecting it to be like this complete Game Pass equivalent, which I think, for certain arms on the line have kind of stated it's not quite the same, as we can all probably expect. They're going to try to put their own spin or put their own flavour on this. But either way, but the flip side, though, is maybe it is almost completely the same in terms of what the service is. Maybe, but and everyone will be pleasantly surprised by it, I guess. But I am excited to hear what it is. Definitely. I mean, we already know that. Well, we believe we already know that there are these kind of free tier systems that you can sign up to, and you get different rewards from it and things like that. I think, like, what was it? The lowest tier was basically just PS Now and your standard PlayStation Live, or whatever the service is called, kind of payment rolled up into one. But equally, I think the more exciting thing as part of this in general is the alleged revamp of PlayStation Now, like to completely change this and update the service to be well, a lot better than it is now. And again, talking in the past when they mentioned about how Sony as the corporate arm, working with Microsoft on the Azure systems and servers and all that kind of stuff, which definitely leads me to think that they're clearly doing something based on the cloud if they're possibly using Azure servers as part of their infrastructure. So if that is what they're doing, then I think that's going to be probably the more exciting thing, especially as what was it? Shadow Warriors 3, I believe it was a PlayStation Now like day one release on their service, which unfortunately PlayStation Now isn't the best compared to others in terms of the cloud gaming realm or streaming realm. So if it is mainly a massive revamp to improve those speeds, I think that's going to be a massive push for PlayStation players that want to have a go at that kind of service. Because I'd like to believe, that there must be a lot of gamers out there with PlayStations who must, a lot of gamers that are into the news will be looking over the fence on either side, like we do it right now, right? So I like to think there's so many people that do look at something like Xbox Cloud Gaming and go, actually, that's got, your mature gamers, I'm not talking about petty console warriors, but there must be loads of people that look at it as a service who haven't bought into it, but must be thinking, actually, I can see the benefits in that. I wish PlayStation had something like it. And maybe this is it. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it. And I do hope we do get some news next week. I'd like to think these rumors are true. And at the very least, we get an elaborate blog post or something.
Yeah, it would be nice to have it outlined.
It out.
There's many question marks over it. Luke, what's your expectations of Spartacus when it comes to first-party titles? Because I was looking through the store and I was thinking, is now the time I spend that £10 to upgrade Uncharted 4 to the PS5 version and stuff? And I'm thinking, well, actually, that would be a classic. That would be a fantastic thing to put in Spartacus, that kind of thing, or even Returnal. Would you expect something like Returnal to be in Spartacus? Do you think, or not?
Yeah, but possibly. Yeah, I think Returnal, I don't know, because they've just released this quite substantial update, so I would assume they'd want to get some more sales out of it for that reason. But it's the type of game I could see coming quite quickly to that service, I think. I think probably by, within a couple of months, that will have exhausted its sales potential on the console. And it'll then move on to PC and probably Spartacus as well. So, yeah, I mean, my expectations are... I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because I think it is a Game Pass competitor, only in the sense of... it's a similar enough service to be called a Game Pass competitor. Now, will it offer the same value as Game Pass, which is a different question? Probably not, because day and date it's not going to be there. So, by extension, it's not going to offer the same value. I'll be interested to see what they do in terms of third parties, if they, are as aggressive and kind of forthright with third party stuff as Microsoft tend to be. That could offer some value. You might get this weird competition between Microsoft and Sony trying to secure, some random AAA third party game to their service. So that would be interesting. And yeah, I mean, I think we've heard so many rumors on it. I'm just looking forward to actually seeing what it is. What does it look like? What do the prices look like? What do you get for all of, for the highest tier, for the lowest tier? They have to tread a fine line. Obviously, they won't want to isolate existing PS Plus users or PS Now users with price hikes, etc. So I'm not really expecting that in terms of, the base prices of these things. I don't think those will change. But certainly the higher tier will be more expensive. And I just wonder what you'll get for it. If it's just back compat with, a selection of PS1, PS2, PS3 games in the highest tier and game demos and streaming, it's not really going to interest me that much, but we'll see. It's hard to talk about it until you actually see these things and see what the value is offered. I'm sure they will bring, to entice people in, they must have some first party stuff on the service, as you say, whether that's, Returnal and Demon Souls and, Ratchet and Clank or something like that, to try and get people in the doors. But it's going to be interesting.
No, absolutely. And to be honest, like I say, it was only when I was flicking through the PlayStation store yesterday thinking, do I drop 70 quid for Returnal, or do I wait a week to see if it's going to be part of Spartacus? And to be fair, we're not likely to know. I wouldn't have thought whether Returnal is going to be part of Spartacus in the coming week. I don't know, but I think it's going to be more of a generic outline of the service potentially, I guess. But it does raise an interesting question, because 70 quid is still quite a lot of money to drop on a game that could potentially be going into a sort of a subscription service. But also I was thinking, well, because like you said, value for money, I think it's going to be cheaper than Game Pass. So on some level, the value you're paying is less, but obviously the value you receive, there is a lot of back compat stuff that they could stick in there, like, the PS5 updated version of Uncharted 4, and the same for Ghost of Tsushima and Spider-Man. There's quite a few games that they can stick in the service with PS5 patches, and I am kind of talking from a PS5 perspective, because that's kind of where things are heading in the coming years, I guess, and they need to draw people in to that service. I never had I did have a PS4 towards the very end, so I'm obviously keen from a PS5 perspective, and how they're going to draw me in and sucker me in if the latest game releases aren't necessarily going to drop day and date. They need to hook me in somehow, I guess. So it's going to be interesting to see what that hook actually is.
So I think I know the answer to this one, but it was also rumoured that they're trying to sucker people in by potentially having back compat with PS3, PS2, and PS1. Again, we don't know if this is actually real, but they definitely mentioned about retro experiences. Is this something that's going to suck you into it? I mean, me personally, I used to really love the idea, but I think the latest Nintendo Switch Online, when they added the expansion pass for N64 titles or things like that, it was... I haven't never paid up for it, and I did consider it about a month or two ago, and then I thought, yeah, but I could just download an emulator and do it that way and have a free and better experience and things like that. So as much as it's nice to have it all in one place and one box, for me, it'd be nice if it was, if not a free add-on, just like a very, very cheap add-on, rather than this being this thing, like this big nostalgia flags being waved to say that, if you pay all this extra money, you can enjoy all this stuff from your childhood or whatever.
I think... Isn't that quite niche? Isn't the retro scene quite a niche scene? I mean, I get people are absolutely into the retro stuff, but to be honest, most retro, I'll call them nerds, retrophiles perhaps. They're so purist that they don't really want emulators and stuff. They want it on the original hardware. So. Yeah, it's not going to tick that box for me, to be honest. I've been through those generations and eras. I've lived through it. I've played Spyro on the original PS and PS2, and I don't need to do it again, really. I've moved on. We've got games like Elden Ring to play and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Well, I can't see why we'd look back.
So even if you just... So would you not consider... I mean, if it was a free add-on, I imagine you would never touch it, even if you could... if you've got a PS1 disc sitting behind you right now, for example, you think... I'd love to play this again, but I can't because my PS1's on the blink or something like that. But then again, I agree with what you say as well. There are more games being released now than there ever has been before. So it's like you almost don't have any time to look back when there's so much to look forward to looking forward,
Yeah, and perhaps I'm talking from a privileged stance, but because I've got a PS 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 all under my TV as we speak, so I can switch those on and play games that I can go and buy, for a couple of quid online or whatever. Right now, obviously not everyone has that luxury, I guess, which is fair enough. But will they still go to the effort of backwards playing, I don't know, Heavy Rain or whatever? I don't know, possibly. I don't think it's going to be a big. I think it's just so niche that it's going to accommodate some, but not the masses. I wouldn't have thought personally. I don't know. What's your take, Luke?
Yeah, I think if they've got PS1, PS2, etc., I think what that will do is it will draw, your kind of. I don't want to say casual market, but people who are kind of mildly interested in service, I would imagine, will sign up for it, to get the nostalgia kick. But the problem is, how long does that keep people in there? So, and for me, that would probably be the same. If there were certain back and pack games that were there that you could play digitally, from those eras, I would probably jump into it. on whatever tier they're on to experience them for a bit. But beyond that, would those keep me in? Probably not. No, because I don't have old consoles like that. I've never kept onto them, but I don't have a massive interest going back and playing those games because most of them are pretty terrible now. They play terribly. So, and unless we moved on, and unless Sony have some form of back compat up-res / up frame rate like Microsoft do, which can kind of breathe new life to these games and to the sorts of games, then it's unlikely you'll spend a great deal of time in them, I would think. So, for me, it would be a cool feature, and that it looks like it's coming, and I'm interested to see their take on it, but it's not going to be something that's going to keep me subscribed to the service, much in the same way as, the NSO stuff is just not enough to keep me subscribed to that service.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, there is a PlayStation 1 game I've never played, but it has always intrigued me, and I am probably whizzing back however many years the PlayStation 1 generation was to my mindset then. I appreciate my mindset now is differently, but I've never really played Parappa the Rapper, and that's always intrigued me. Game. Because it's such a wacky game. So to be fair, Pucks, like Luke was saying,
didn't they re-release that though? I thought they re-released that.
I think they did re-release, a couple of years ago or something like that.
Oh, right. Oh, wow. I'll have to keep my eye open.
I'm sure they re-released it, yeah.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's
I was never a fan of it personally, but it's definitely one of those very late 90s wacky ideas.
It's a rhythm game, isn't it? Just press X.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Well, I might give that a go, but that's probably about the extent of it, I guess. So, well, while we're talking about game subscriptions and get ready to heavily roll your eyes, here we go. Grand Theft Auto subscription. It's man, will they not kill this fucking game off? Now, I'm guessing that the subscription GTA Plus, as they're calling it, may roll over into GTA 6. I don't know how they're going to handle the whole online aspect of GTA 6, or whether it's going to solely be an online game, or how they're going to work all of that out. But here we go again, monetizing even heavier into Grand Theft Auto. That's after selling GTA 5 on 3 consoles, and the promise of GTA 6 at some point in the future, which is probably about 20 years away. What's our takes on GTA Plus? I guess there's no real surprise. I feel disappointed. Why do I feel disappointed? I don't play the game. It doesn't really affect me in any way. I just feel disappointed that they're yet ringing this out even more. Do you know what I mean? I just feel disappointed.
I think this is the thing, though. In a way, are they really ringing it out? Because they do keep constantly adding new content to the game, and this is kind of almost a supplement to all of the extra content that they're adding. And I think as part of this service, it was mentioned that if you subscribe to this, then you get this extra stuff for free. You don't actually have to pay extra for it when this stuff does release in the future. I think there was also some mention of something single player based, but I don't believe that is single player campaign as it always has been. Like, that's never been touched as far as I'm aware. My understanding is that is single player within the realm of GTA Online specifically, was my understanding. And then this thing where every month you get a recurring 500,000 in-game GTA dollars, whatever they call it, and things like that. But then I think that was a funny one for me, and I can understand it's an easy one to add to a subscription service, but I think things like Twitch and stuff, Amazon Gaming, whatever they call them, if you have Prime, for example, you could claim a reward where for the last year you could get 1 million into your account every month for things like this. It was to do with that whole GTA 5 PS5 promotion period, whatever they called it. But no, it's a weird one, and I think it's definitely signs that this game, or at least the online aspect, is not being binned off anytime soon. And I think, as you say, it's almost causing a bit of and caution as to how this is going to affect GTA 6, because there were some very early rumors a couple of weeks ago that GTA 6 was going to be like a multi-locale game that you could get on a plane and fly to Los Santos to Vice City and vice versa. I mean, that's all rumored, and we don't actually know, right? But if that's the case, and they're bringing that kind of service to the online ecosystem, then GTA 6 is going to be around for about 50 years. Yeah. I think. It's almost lasted so long now that people have. I don't know. A lot of people love GTA still, but I think a lot of people, like at least us, who aren't too fond of the online stuff. As far as I'm aware, you're not, Luke, as well. it's just throwing my love of GTA lower and lower down the list.
Yeah, but
the bin, it's like
it's almost unfair though, because I think Stubbs has put in the chat, this isn't a bad service for fans of the game, and I guess I'm coming from the perspective of not being a fan, particularly of the online side of the game. I never actually completed GTA 5 despite owning it on 2 separate different consoles. I bought the game twice, never actually completed
close to the
it.
end? I've done it 3 times.
I don't know.
I finished it 3 times, believe it or not. Yeah.
I don't know, to be honest. It's one of those moments that people say, "What? You've never completed GTA 5?" It's like, no, I never have. And Luke is our resident rocks. Why?
Yeah, why did you never get around to finishing
I don't know. I think I've just been.
I love the story. It
Did
gets
you?
to a point. It's a bit of a drag at the beginning, but once all 3 characters kind of converge together, the story kind of slowly. I mean, the story is obviously ridiculous and doesn't really make much sense, but it does make sense at the time when I'm playing the game. If you,
I think it's bloody bad timing, really, because they keep launching these games at the very tail end of one generation or the beginning of another and stuff. And there's just so many other things to play at that point. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I think I just got kind of sideswiped a little bit and never actually went back to it. And because there's this whole aspect of switching characters and stuff, you need to retain that mentally as to kind of where you are and what's going on at any timeline. So it's not the sort of game.
Yeah, I think that's maybe the wrong mindset though, because I think the game does very well at leading you between the characters. I mean, personally,
yeah, but even if you've put it down for a month or two.
Well, but then I agree, but at the same time, I argue that the GTA stories are so ridiculous and don't make much sense anyway.
Yeah,
that you're kind of playing it just for the sake of doing a mission rather than being enthralled in the story of GTA, if you understand what I'm saying.
But this is where we go back to Luke's argument, and I say he's our resident Rockstar fan. Like you say, the game mechanics are a bit janky, and like I say, I love Red Dead 2, but I have to hold my hand up to the game mechanics being janky. What I liked about Red Dead 2 was the story narrative that flowed through, and I know there's criticisms of that, but I personally enjoyed that, and it was quite a long story, but that didn't bother me. But it was with GTA, it's kind of chopped up into bits. It's like, I don't know. It didn't hold me. But Luke, what's your take on the subscription service? So I'm guessing you've got some opinions on this one.
Actually, I'm fairly indifferent to it. I'm actually surprised it hasn't been here, within the last few years. I mean, if you think about how long GTA 5 has been about, specifically the online portion, if you think about how popular it's been, the fact that there hasn't been a subscription service, of some variety, is quite unbelievable, really. And it's almost strange that they're doing it now, because the game is still. It's still selling incredibly well, which is remarkable. It doesn't feel like it's something they need to do. However, I think you're probably right in the first kind of bit that you spoke about, in that it, maybe this is their kind of template now going forward, and they're getting this ready for GTA 6 as well, and wanted to roll this out kind of early doors to get people on board, and then you can migrate down the line to a new game. It's probably also a testament to how far away GTA 6 is, because I think if it was close, if it was much close, you'd save it, wouldn't you? Yeah, and I think everybody knew that game was years away anyway, but it seems really quite far away indeed. So, yeah, I think I had a look at it, and I had a look what was offered and some of the stuff you can buy separately. It actually seems value-wise pretty good. For people who do play the game, I think it's only $6 a month, so it's not really that bad. And apparently, from what I've seen, you do get some stuff that's worth a lot more than $6 in it.
A good example of that is I think for $10 of real world money, that gives you 500,000 in-game cash.
Yeah, and I think that's the monthly amount, isn't it, that you get through the subscription. So that alone, you're getting it. If you play that game and you play it a lot, I think that's good value. So it's certainly better than the Fallout 76 one that came out a while back. So and various other subscription services for single games, which don't tend to be that great. So I don't have, I'm fairly ambivalent towards it all. I mean, obviously, I'm never, ever going to touch it. But that mostly applies to Rockstar games in general. Although I assume, like everybody, I'll go and play GTA 6 when it comes out. Surprising and also not surprising in its own way.
Well, disappointing. I guess I just feel disappointed, and I have no right to feel disappointed. And I think, like you were saying, my disappointment is a stealth disappointment. I think because like you say, what it demonstrates to me is just how far GTA 6 away is, and I want a Red Dead 3. That's what I want out of Rockstar. No.
I can't sit through another 55 hours of a Red Dead story.
Well, you don't have to. That's the thing. You don't have to. But the fact that I want to, and the fact it's probably about 25 years away, or however long it is, probably another 3 generations away. It's just disappointing, I guess.
I think to remember though, or to bear in mind, is this subscription service, because a lot of I've got it up in front of me now, and a lot of the things they're offering I would argue, aren't super special, and they're not necessarily. Yes, there's some exclusives, but they're not like brand new, massive, large scale stuff. It's all just kind of in-game, like in-world infrastructure stuff, like the buildings you can own, what you're able to buy, what you can upgrade. So in terms of, has a lot of people been pulled away to work on this? I think for me, I'm looking at this thinking, well, no, there's probably maybe a team of 10 to 20 people out of their 600 plus staff, which maybe worked on this add-on. And I'd like to think, as you just mentioned, that GTA 6 is being worked on by the large majority of this team that do exist over there. But
you'd have thought so.
I could be wrong.
Yeah. No. Just while we're on to subscription services, something I thought about actually when you was talking earlier, Luke, about perhaps someone like Game Pass or Spartacus, whatever that. I doubt Spartacus is just the code name. I don't know what they're actually going to call it, but them kind of wrangling over third-party deals to have them in their service either day and date or at some point after release and stuff. And I was thinking, I'm just wondering because there was lots of discussion at the time around whether Call of Duty, once the deal goes through, actually makes it onto PlayStation and stuff. And I still don't think it's been completely clear whether. Or what aspects of Call of Duty will remain on PlayStation. But I'm thinking that perhaps one of the things that the subscription services could offer is obviously access to the Season Pass. So I can obviously completely see that with Game Pass, you get the Call of Duty Season Pass as part of that bundle. And perhaps that's an easier bargaining chip for PlayStation to have on a different franchise or a different game, just to bundle in some of these season passes and stuff. That kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Just to add a little bit of value to it on some level.
Can I add though, on the talk of season passes, because I don't want to keep bringing this game up. We talk about it to death, but Elden Ring, for example, I've seen a lot of videos about that just randomly pop up on my YouTube feed about why this game seems to be doing so well, why is it so popular, and it almost seems backwards to consider, but a lot of people the trend seems to be the same, and that the reason why it's being picked up and everyone's loving it is not just because of the content of the game itself, but also because of the fact that there are no microtransactions, there is no battle pass system, there's no in-game currency to worry about to give you extra exclusives. Everything that you can and will discover in the game is there in this, and it's 50 quid, not 70 quid. I think that was another thing to remember, which is which I thought 20 quid saving from what you expect to pay nowadays for a next gen title. But it's strange to think that it's eye-opening and refreshing to see a game that doesn't have anything that requires me to spend any further real world money than just buying the game alone, So I just find it interesting. I mean, I know it's a bit of a sideswipe from what you were talking about, but I think just the fact that every game now almost feels the need to have a battle pass or some sort of microtransaction, I think is almost sucking the life out of gaming a little bit. It feels like it's becoming more and more of this parasite which grows in a way. I appreciate there's a lot of games out there where it does work, people, and it fits I think games free to play titles like Fortnite, I think it works perfectly for, because they're clearly earning an absolute bomb from this, and it's good for them, it's good for the gamers because they get something out of it. But I think when you're paying an extortionate amount for titles anyway, and then you got all this stuff which is seeming, artificially locked behind real world paywalls. It's like, oh, for Christ's sake, here we go again. People kind of succumb to it, and I think almost the world believes it's popular because people pay into it. It's like, no, they pay into it because they now feel they have to pay into it rather than just being able to enjoy the game for what it is.
Well, I think what From Software did is they made a fantastic game that sold incredibly well, and they've made their money through through the sales of the game, and that kind of brings me on. Actually, before we do, Luke, because I'm not really a Souls player and I'm not really a From Software kind of guy, are they big on DLC? Are we expecting DLC for Elden Ring? I'm guessing we are on some level.
Yeah, I think for Elden Ring, yes, because it's been so successful. So I can't actually remember. They did a very big DLC for Bloodborne of all games, called The Old Hunters, which was amazing. But I can't remember if they didn't do any for Sekiro, and I don't think they did any for any of the Souls games either. So Bloodborne is really the outlier with their DLC plans. But I think, given how successful Elden Ring is, I mean, I would be very surprised if they didn't do some DLC for it. Probably paid, because they tend to do paid DLC, but you get an enormous amount of value for it. So
there's plenty of space on the map as well.
Oh god, yeah. Well, knowing From, they'll just invent a new map. They'll just do a new area. Just let you go on that. They won't half-arse it. They didn't with the Old Hunters. It was a brand new space, new bosses, new story. It was basically a mini sequel. So yeah, I certainly hope they do. I've got to finish the first game first. So.
No, it's interesting you say that, Pucks, and there are a number of developers that seem to be really out of touch with, the gaming community in general. And I'm going to bring up Ubisoft, and that will probably invoke some kind of reaction with certain people, because I know, there's people, people in our community that love things like Assassin's Creed and stuff. But, things like X-Defiant, they've dropped the whole Tom Clancy thing now.
Yeah, I've read about that.
And even with
I think a lot of people have got out, I think that's a good reason about being out of touch, isn't it? Because it's like, this isn't Tom Clancy at all. It's a cartoony looter shooter, whatever it was. It's not that, but I can't remember what it was. But it wasn't the slow-paced stealth action we expect from the name Tom Clancy, is it? So,
well, it wasn't a tactical shoot. It wasn't a semi-serious tactical shooter. They've kind of tried to go down the sort of Fortnite kind of comical kind of, and it just that's not Tom Clancy at all. And they just seem so out of touch with what we want as a community. And like you say, why just rubber stamp the Tom Clancy thing over this new IP? Just make it its own thing. I don't get it. And to be honest, EA with Battlefield, kind of making that a little bit more light-hearted, shall we say, with the stupid, when at the end of the game you have those stupid quips and the whole no scoreboard thing. It's just, are they really that out of touch? I appreciate that innovation has to push the boundaries sometimes, and you have to try stuff. But don't you do that with a new IP? You don't necessarily do that with an existing IP.
I think there's definitely this thought process, isn't there? That but that IP is popular, so let's just jump on that bandwagon. But then that's when, as you say, I think this is where the out of touchness comes from, because then its execution is not. It's not what the core of the IP is about. It's like you're throwing this whole new genre onto an IP and expecting people to latch onto it because it's that IP. And as you've already said, like, putting the rubber stamp of Tom Clancy on something doesn't mean that people are going to like it. If anything, people are almost insulted that you're disrespecting the name of Tom Clancy.
Exactly. It's weird, isn't it? And to be honest, and Soren X in the comments makes a good point. Splinter Cell remakes should be cool, hopefully. But how long were people asking for a Splinter Cell remake or game? Yeah. And it's just like, why won't they? I know we're in different waters now, but at the time, why wouldn't they just make this game? They just seem so out of touch. It's bizarre. What do you think, Luke? Do these publishers get too big for their own good, and they just make unilateral decisions that they think that everyone wants, or am I being a little bit harsh on innovation? Do you think?
Well, I think, when you look at publishers like Ubisoft and EA in the past, to a greater extent, they've got a little better recently. I think the problem is that they're always chasing the next big, huge moneymaker, and typically these days that only comes, in terms of the really, really big money makers, that only comes with service games. So you get a portion of these publishers' fan bases like us, and the hardcore gaming community that want, we want certain things. We want a new Splinter Cell. We want it to be like the old Splinter Cells, but bigger, blah, blah, blah. But Ubisoft aren't really listening to those people. They're listening to the market en masse, and what are the big games in the market? They're service games. So, and it's very almost arrogant in a way to think that you can just make a service game and it'll be really successful, like like a Fortnite or a Rocket League or any of those types of games. But that's that's what the publishers want to do, right? So I think in recent years, and you've seen this with EA a bit, they've learned that you can have these kind of single player games and service games that coexist together. You don't need everything to be a certain way. EA obviously did Dead Space remake. They've focused on Jedi Fallen Order and that sort of stuff, and they seem to be a little more receptive now to listening to their fan base a bit more, not just the fan base that plays FIFA Ultimate Team and drives their monetization. Ubisoft, I guess, started listening a little bit during the Splinter Cell remake, but yeah, you're right. It's taken so long for them to do that, and it's only because I suppose there are other games, their service games are not performing, or at least some of them are not performing to the level they wanted them to perform, because there's so much saturation in that market that of course they won't. There's many that, Hyperscape was another, right? The Battle Royale that's just dead now. Like, they're just taking it offline.
But do you think Fortnite has fucked this up for everyone? And I mean, they fucked it up for everyone because it's two things, Fortnite. It's such a high bar, both in terms of popularity and the money that it generates, but also I think these companies look at Fortnite and think, oh, that's what people want. That's what people want. But we don't want that. We've got that already. What we want is something that's not Fortnite. Do you know what I mean? So they fall into this trap of thinking, right, well, let's make everything cartoony. Let's make everything cel-shaded. Let's copy the Fortnite format without actually understanding that it's not actually those things that make Fortnite, if that makes any sense.
I I think that's true. Clearly Fortnite's had a massive influence on the attitudes of big publishers in terms of how they design their games, in terms of monetization and service, and also, as you say, maybe to some extent how they present their games, whether they make them more lighthearted or introduce very Fortnite-esque things into them. I think that has had, you can absolutely see that across, as you say, Battlefield. You can see it across Halo to some extent, in terms of the silly cosmetics that they sometimes come out with. It's lessened there, but it is still there. So yeah, I think so, and I think the only way that will stop is if these games that try and mimic that or do things that are similar are not successful, which, to be fair, if you look at Halo Online and Battlefield Online especially, and some others, they haven't been. They've had outcries from their fan bases for one reason or another. So I think Fortnite has had a weird influence on publishers, as have service games in general. It's not just fair to single out Fortnite, because if you look at a lot of service, a lot of service games, even the successful ones, borrow ideas from other service games, right? There's kind of this homogenized mass of AAA live service game ideas, presented in a different way most of the time. So, it's a really interesting question. I just hope that certain publishers turn the course on it and just introduce a bit more balance to what they're offering people. And also for the games that are service-based, they try and make them distinctly unique, and don't try and introduce stuff from other games or aesthetic from other games, because the fan base just, people don't want it. They don't want that. If you wanted to play Fortnite, for example, you would go and play it, right? You don't want it in your Battlefield. So,
got an interesting comment from Soren X as well, who said that cancel culture also has a huge effect on these companies, which I think is interesting. I think I think in the world, from my point of view, when I read that, I think you see so many top tier streamers, like Twitch streamers and people like that, who almost in a way feel like they are the kind of the guiding voice for all players, when the reality is, like these streamers are covering such a small group of people, to the point, I don't watch many, if any, streamers at all. I may be aware of some of them where they make headlines for all the wrong reasons, but they nowhere near have my voice in what they say in terms of what I think. And I think, but I don't know. I always get the impression that these companies almost, again, the whole cancel culture comment here is, they do bow down to it. They go, "Oh my god, I'm so unhappy," and we've got like these 5,000 players who also agree with me. And it's like, yeah, but you've got like a player base of 500,000. So that's like 1% of your player base have got some complaints. But that's kind of the reason why things drive into change, is what I'm trying to say. But I mean, do you agree on that? Do you think cancel culture is a massive driver as to why these companies are playing it safe rather than maybe going completely innovative?
And without opening up this whole can of worms, this sort of days gone kind of, no next game coming, because it was deemed that the first one didn't hit the right metrics or whatever. That there's a lot of pressure to make sure that every game you release is a success, and it's disappointing. And like you said, that's why I think that these companies, I can just imagine the meetings around the table for a new game. It's like, right, we've got, what we're going to do with this new Tom Clancy game. It's like, well, the kids love Fortnite, let's try and mash that together somehow. And then, they seem to be sprinkling this Fortnite formula over everything that they just expect to be an instant sort of success because of it, and it just isn't. And lots of games, like you say, will there be another X Defiant? No, there's barely the first one. Do you know what I mean? It's not gonna take. Is it? What was the the game that you mentioned earlier, Luke, that Ubisoft made, the Battle Royale one that's not come to anything?
Hyperscape.
Hyperscape. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that the dodgeball thing? Is that right?
No, that was arena shooter Battle Royale that Ubisoft made.
Didn't Hyperscape have lots of rockets and stuff? It was kind of...
Yeah, it was like a futuristic setting. It was not very good. Well, it was okay, actually, funnily enough. It wasn't that bad. It's just very vapid, so...
It's what they don't do is bring anything new, in my opinion, or if it is, if they do market it as being new, it's so inconsequential that we've got Fortnite. Why just leave Fortnite to do Fortnite? You're not gonna, as Stubbs mentioned in the comments, you're not gonna get anywhere near Fortnite. So don't think that your franchise with kind of a Fortnite facelift is gonna get anywhere close to it. It's just not. Fortnite exists. We need something new, and I think perhaps one of the reasons, and we're kind of going back to Elden Ring, strange enough, one of the reasons I think that's sold so well is because it kind of felt a bit new, a bit fresh. It was a Souls game, but in an open world environment, and it certainly suckered me in. I'd never played a Souls game before. You've got it. Scott's bought it. We're not necessarily Souls players, but we've all got it because it kind of felt new. And to be fair, we were kind of riding the crest of the hype wave as well, I guess. But the hype wave was there for a particular reason. Whereas something, some other generic battle royale game comes out, it just feels like more of the same.
And I think, again, what Stubbs was saying as well, that it was only currently a limited time event, and it's to do with the in-game story of Fortnite. But for a limited time, they have introduced a no build mode, and I jumped on this bandwagon.
Okay.
All the news outlets were obviously crying about it, to the point where queues were so long, like so many players are jumping back onto the game to try it out. And I love the experience personally, because I've always liked Fortnite as a shooter, but the building mechanics for me, I'm I don't have the time and patience to to get good at it. And for the amount of sweat you see out there, one shot from across the map to try and take someone out, and they've built a mansion in 2 seconds. Yeah. For me personally, as someone who'd rather just point and shoot, it ruins the game. But this mode, it's with that all completely gone. I've so enjoyed it. It's reinvigorated my love for the game.
Yeah, that's because traditionally we're first-person shooter players, aren't we? So that would, or shooter players in general, that would actually sucker me back into that franchise, because I did have a dabble when it first became popular. And unlike you, I'm not the demographic to have to learn the whole build mechanics. I just want to go and run and shoot things. That's just where I've come from. It's what I like. It's why I still like Call of Duty to this day. As I know Call of Duty's evolved, but the formula is still very much the same. So like you said, to have to learn a whole different mechanic. And to be honest, with Call of Duty, the ones I hated were the ones with the whole jumpsuits and stuff where you could triple jump. I just didn't buy that, because again, it was something I didn't really want to have to learn. I was more of a boots on the ground person. So to hear that Fortnite have made that jump, and that they've actually recaptured a lot of people that have possibly dropped off that game, it's quite exciting to hear, actually. So I might even give it myself a go this afternoon.
It's currently limited time, but I think it's been so popular, everyone is hoping that they make it a permanent edition, like as an alternative to your standard build mode. But if anything, just looking at bearing in mind, like, this game is big anyway, so things like server space and capacity and stuff, you would assume would all be sorted out. But so many people, when I heard the stories that so many people are jumping back onto the game because of the fact that they've got rid of this mechanic, which a large portion, obviously loads of people love it, a large portion also hate it. I'm in that camp. But we're all jumping onto it. So the game, even if you're not a massive fan of the look, it's doing something right to sucker people like me in to try it again and actually falling in love with it, which clearly all of these other games aren't doing, because I personally don't play them anymore. I've fallen out of love with them and don't care about them.
I think one thing Epic have done with Fortnite is kept it relevant. They've kept it so fresh. There's always something going on, and they are very quick to respond to both problems, bug fixes and stuff, but also jumping on current trends. They're very good at that, and they are the masters at making cash. So I would suspect that if this is a cash spinner for them, then they will certainly capitalise on that, I think.
Definitely, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. Okay, I think that kind of wraps up the show, gents, and I thank you both for being here and sharing your thoughts and opinions. Not a massive game news week, but quite a few topics that we covered. Chat, thank you very much for being with us. A few new faces in the chat, always a pleasure. We've got some Soren X from Down Under as well. So obviously our coffee mornings, although we were thinking, we're not going to capture the American market or the States, we're going to be catching the Southern Hemisphere potentially, which is quite exciting, and a whole new bunch of people. So I hope you've enjoyed the show. Like I say, Luke Pucks, thank you for being here, gents, giving us your thoughts and opinions. We'll do it again soon.
No worries.
Hope you all have a fantastic week of gaming, and enjoy whatever games it is you are playing, and we will see you on the next one. See you later.
Take care all.
Bye.